not at the forefront, well, maybe get at the forefront. And if they can do that with all these young kids coming, with the talent that they already have at the major league level, it's going to be quite an interesting team. Another idea for them, and I've written about this, would be to sign Bregman, move Devers to first, put Casas in the Crochet deal or some other deal. All of these things should be in play for them. They should have money to burn after, of course, making that pursuit of Juan Soto. And of course, they also want a right-handed hitter. Whether it's Bregman, whether it's Tasker Hernandez, whether it's someone else, maybe two of those guys, they are heavily left-handed.
Isn't that interesting? Kenny Rosenthal during the winter talking about what the Red Sox plans were. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to go back to Kenny Rosenthal last September and read to you what he wrote about what the Red Sox should do to handle their glut of left-handed hitters. That's where we're going to start tonight on the Baseball Hour. And normally, Jared Carrabis joins us every Wednesday. However, this week, for those of you listening, special treat. He is joining us tonight. Jared Carrabis is, for the reasons that we will share with you momentarily. But Jared is presented by Blue Moon Light, a light and refreshing citrus sweet beer with only 95 calories, brewed with real tangerine peel for a subtle sweetness and a smooth finish. Enjoy Blue Moon Light today. Jared Carrabis again joining us via Zoom. Jared, you want to tell everybody why you're doing tonight instead of tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm leaving the country, Tony. I was like, listen.
Forever?
I can't do this stuff with Maz anymore. I got to flee the country. So I'm making my last appearance ever on 98.5 The Sports Hub, and I'm leaving the country.
Okay, so there you go. Now do you want to tell people the real reason you're leaving the country?
It's my dad's 70th in October. So they do Beatles tours during the four Beatles birthdays, and he has the same birthday as John Lennon. But I was like, if you do the Beatles tour in London in October, I'm probably out. Like, I can't do that. So we're doing this one, flying there tomorrow, doing 10 days, and it'll be a lot of fun. I'm very excited. I'm a Beatles fan myself, so I'm excited for this.
Okay, what's your father's name, Jared?
Pat.
So happy birthday to Pat Carrabis. Enjoy the Beatles tour. Share the birthday with Lennon. Both gifted writers, I'm guessing. Of course. Pat Carrabis and John Lennon. Jared Carrabis, not so much, but we don't need to go there.
That's fair.
617-779-0985. So, Jared, in all seriousness, I want to start with Triston Casas, and here's why I want to start with Casas. I'm going to give you some stats on Casas that, frankly, are kind of mind-blowing when you realize or look at how bad Triston Casas has really been thus far this season. But I want to start last September. Okay, last September, just to give people an idea. This was in a report by Kenny Rosenthal in The Athletic last September, which drew a lot of attention from those of us here in Boston who follow the Red Sox at that time. And I just think to say that it was prescient is an understatement. This is what Kenny Rosenthal wrote in his first paragraph last September 16th. Picture Alex Bregman playing third base for the Boston Red Sox next season. Wait, what about Rafael Devers? Move him to first. What about Triston Casas? Trade him for a starting pitcher of comparable ability and service, maybe one from the Seattle Mariners. That was Kenny Rosenthal's opening paragraph back on September 14th. This is now April 22nd, so that was 7 months ago. And I would say this didn't come to an exact outcome, but I would say it certainly got close. Bregman is here. Casas remains. And what reminded me of all this today, Jared, was the fact that Seattle's in town. The Mariners are here to open a series, and I thought Casas is going bad. Boy, how might things have been different if Triston Casas had been traded to the Seattle Mariners and the Red Sox had gotten pitching in return. Now, Casas has played so poorly, Jared, that I think the Red Sox may have already missed the window to get proper value for him in any sort of deal. Because, again, we're 7 months later now, which means Roman Anthony is ripping up AAA. Certainly Christian Campbell is playing well. Casas is playing poorly. Devers hasn't moved to first yet, but that seems like the move that might open it up potentially for Anthony to come here, which again relates to Casas, although certainly they could put Anthony in left field, move Duran to center. and take Raphael out of the lineup, which will bring me to a different issue later on in the program that I want to ask you about. But the bottom line is, a lot of this stuff that Rosenthal talked about came true or is about to come true. So you tell me, and I asked you this via text today, or you raised the question, but I'll ask it to you. How much longer can the Red Sox wait on Triston Casas?
Well, I'll answer your question with a question. Do you think that Ken Rosenthal just happened upon this and this is just something that he conjured up in his brain, or do you think he heard that, like, what the plans were and then posed it as a theory?
The second
because yeah, of course. Like, that was the plan all along, because they tried to trade Tristan Casas this offseason. Obviously, the Red Sox wanted Alex Bregman. Alex Cora really wanted Alex Bregman. Sam Kennedy did. We had all the reports about, whether there was a divide amongst the Brain Trust and whether Bregman was wanted or not. Ultimately, yes, he came here. So that was all along part of the plan. But to your question about, like, Tristan Casas, how long is the leash? I can't. It's a catch-22 because you want to be able to build up his value so that you can move him.
Definitely.
Because I still think, Roman Anthony, he's coming, and Christian Campbell's already here. Marcelo Meyer is not going to be far behind. They need to clear up these spots. And I do ultimately think that Rafael Devers will be your first baseman. I think that they've already had conversations about that. But in order to facilitate all of that, you need Triston Casas to go out there and show you something, and he has not done that defensively. He has not done that offensively. So you're going to have to keep trotting him out there until he does something, so that you can maybe entertain the idea of moving him.
Okay, but you say they've already had conversations with Devers. Is that you theorizing, or is that informed speculation?
I don't think that they've had conversations with Devers. I think that they've had conversations about Devers.
Okay, about moving him over to first base. And look, Jared, again, clearly that has been the case based on what Rosenthal wrote, and he wrote it last September. So when people have talked about Devers moving to a different position, trading Casas, a lot of this started with the Rosenthal report, which, again, as you pointed out, probably came from people in the organization who had clued him in, almost certainly came from people in the organization who had clued him in to what their ideal scenarios were. Now, you mentioned Casas' play, Jared. I just want to share this with the listeners. There are people out there like Milliken who defend Casas, who say that he's a better player than he has played, which I agree with, by the way. He's not this bad. We all know that. But I'm not sure people realize just how bad Casas has been in the early part of the season. Okay. So I looked some of this up today, and when I looked it up, I think the numbers have since been updated a little bit, but I think the general premise holds true. So let me just read it to you quickly. I wrote about this on our website. Of all the players on the 2025 Red Sox roster, perhaps nobody else has seen his value plummet like Casas, who is hitting 167 with a 491 OPS through the first 20 games of the season. I think those numbers are actually a little lower because when I looked them up, the numbers hadn't been updated yet on the website. But whatever, okay? The point being this. When I looked at this stat this morning, 76 players had appeared in a game at first base this year. 76. Okay? And Casas ranks 76th among those 76 players in overall WAR. Dead last. In other words, of any player, not just starting first baseman, of any player who has set foot on the field this year and played first base, Triston Casas ranks dead last in WAR. He's been the worst player to set foot on the field at that position this year. In offensive ranking, according to Fangraphs, he's 75th out of 76. Defensively, he's 71st out of 76th. Add it all up, and again, it's 76 out of 76. So what I'm concerned about, Jared, is that with Anthony coming, with Meyer coming, with a change from, or a positional change from Devers seemingly inevitable, I don't know that there's going to be enough time for Casas to get to the point where he can rebuild his value to a stage where we would say they will get full value for him in a trade. There's still time for them to get value, but I think they may have already missed the window to get full value for Triston Casas. True or false?
I still think that there's time for them to get value, but then you kind of run into the issue of, all right, say he gets hot at the end of the month here and he takes that up until the second week of June. Now what you're going to have from the fans is saying, well, the problem's solved. Like, this is the Casas that you thought all along you were going to get. Why would you trade that guy? He's helping you out. He's, let's say, league average defensively, but then he's got an OPS of 850. And you're like, all right, well, why would you move on from that guy? Because the other thing, too, here is I think the Red Sox really thought that they had a legit shot to get Vladdy Jr. Obviously, he signs the 14-year extension with the Toronto Blue Jays, but I think the plan was we'll figure this out at the end of the year with Casas, but Vladdy's, like, that's plan A next winter. That's no longer in the cards. So now it's either you figure out what you have with Casas, or now we have to have another conversation with Rafi where it's like, hey, we told you that you're a DH. We told you you're not touching the field anymore, but we actually need you to go out there and learn a brand new position in first base. You down for that? Like, if he wasn't disgruntled before, I don't know how he receives that. It's like, you told me a DH, so I'm trying to get in the mindset of being a DH, and now you want me to go back on the field, but you want me to play a position that's not a position that I've ever played before? I don't know how that conversation goes either, but I don't think that Casas' value is completely shot. Like, we're talking about a 25-year-old who's a first-rounder that, has performed. He's, to what you said earlier, he's not as bad as what we're seeing right now. I think we can all agree. But it's more so, how do we make the pieces fit? Because you're gonna, once Roman Anthony's up here, he hasn't played the field since, I believe, April 10th. If he's going to come up sooner rather than later, he's going to need some time at DH. And if he's at DH, where does Rafi go? Well, you got time to learn first base, brother. Like, we're going to have to, like, the pieces don't all fit.
Yeah, Jared, the thing gets really interesting really fast. And again, the element of Anthony in this is a big part of it, because his arrival in the big leagues is going to potentially put heat on them to make a decision. And this raises a bigger question about the Red Sox that I also want to ask Jared about in terms of evaluating players in their own system and how good are they at it and how much faith we have in the Red Sox to evaluate their own players. We'll get to that as well as your phone calls when we come back on the Baseball Hour, 617-779-0985 with Jared Carrabis of Underdog Fantasy on this Tuesday. They do. How do the Red Sox solve this problem? Because I have a hard time believing Triston Casas is going to keep Roman Anthony out of the lineup. I think that one's inevitable. Diggy's in Leominster. You're on with Jared Carrabis tonight as well. Diggy, what do you got?
Hey, guys. I'll try to be quick, but do you guys remember that 2-year Heim Bloom period where we had 4A guys past their prime, players at a position to play first base? They didn't want to get a serviceable player because we have Casas coming up. And I feel like the same thing is happening now where they didn't have a backup plan. And Carrabus, you were right. I think they wanted Vlad Guerrero. So now we're talking Devers, Bergman, Anthony. And it feels like we're just going through the motions again, having someone who doesn't play first. What do you think?
Okay, so look, Diggy, Casas does play first. He hasn't played it well. And frankly, Jared, one of my concerns with him is that defensively, I don't feel like he's improved. I mean, you tell me, am I being too critical, or is he basically the same player he was when he came up?
He has. I haven't seen much improvements defensively. I don't think the caller was saying that Casas doesn't play first. I think he was saying, like, now if we move on from Casas, that Plan B without Vladdy being an option is going to be the same thing that they were doing. It's like, all right, well, they didn't want to go get Rizzo. They throw out, like, Bobby Dahlbeck was a third baseman. They put him over there first. Earlier today, Katie Morrison, who covers the Woo Sox, tweeted a quote from Chad Tracy, who's the manager of the Woo Sox, and he said, quote, "We are not putting Roman at first base." So that kind of, I wasn't really on board with that very much, but now it's definitively a no. Someone who has been taking reps at first base for the Woo Sox would be Vaughn Grissom, the forgotten man in all of this. I mean, you traded Chris Sale, who then went on to win the Cy Young Award, for one of the top prospects in the Braves system, in Vaughn Grissom. And because of Meyer and Story's resurgence this year, everyone has sort of forgotten about Vaughn. And to the caller's point, yes, it is putting someone at first base that's not necessarily a first baseman. But much like Roman Anthony, his offensive numbers at Worcester, they've been off the charts. I mean, there's games where he's going 5 for 6 with 3 doubles. Like he's going off. So it's gotten to the point with Vaughn where, yeah, you kind of look at a position outside of second base where he normally would be playing. Christian Campbell's not moving off a second right now for anyone. Maybe Meyer eventually, but that's the only guy he's moving off second for. So maybe Vaughn Grissom is someone that you can at least call up and see what he's got at first base, because it can't, as you mentioned, going through the numbers earlier, Tony, it can't get much worse than what Casas has provided to this point.
Yeah, again, and just so people know, Grissom is hitting .343 with a .975 OPS right now at AAA. I want to get back to the calls, but I'll just say that I'm the one who threw the idea of putting Anthony at first base. That wasn't based on anything other than my gut. And I said, with the way Casas is going, you want to get Anthony in the lineup, give him some reps at first base. So people want to mock me for that. They can certainly mock me. At the end of the day, I was just trying to get the bat in the lineup. Martin in Texas. Martin, go ahead.
Hey, guys, I think it's just coming down to the point that they don't want to take Rafaela out of the lineup because they need players that actually play their position and are good defensively. So they're just trying to figure out a way to get Casas' bat out of the lineup and put Anthony's bat in the lineup. And I think that if Casas doesn't figure it out maybe around May 9th or 10th, they're just going to – they'll put in Grissom before they keep dealing with his stuff. Because, I mean, given his antics, they would put up with his antics if his bat was playing. But if you're doing your antics and your bat isn't playing, you're a complete net negative.
Yeah, look, it's all about production, Martin. Right? It's all about the production. But, Jared, this to me raises the question I asked during Felger and Maz today, that if we look at the last several months, okay, one of my big things, and I've said this for a long time, I've always believed the most important job of any GM and in any organization is to be able to identify your own talent, particularly in the minor leagues. You have to be able to separate the real prospects from the fake prospects. You and I have had this discussion. So, which guys do you keep? Which guys do you trade? The Red Sox have, in the Crochet deal, traded away Kyle Teal. Now, look, Teal's not off to a great start from an average standpoint with the White Sox, hitting in the low 200s, but he's got 3 homers already, and he ripped up the minor leagues at a very short period of time when he was in the Red Sox system. So I guess what I'm asking is this. Between Teal, Ceddanne Rafaela, whom the Red Sox gave a multi-year contract to, and to me unnecessarily did so. And now Casas and Kenny Rosenthal's story about maybe they trade Casas for pitching. In the audio cut we played earlier, he even said maybe they can trade him to Chicago in the Crochet deal. Was there ever a chance that the White Sox would have taken Casas over Kyle Teal? And how confident are you in the Red Sox ability to evaluate their own players?
So I don't think that was an option because I think they would have pursued it.
Okay.
I look at how, at least what was public, and we learned that they tried to trade Casas. Like they tried to include him in multiple deals, and the deal either didn't go through, or teams were like, all right, yeah, what else you got? Casas and what? It wasn't something where 2-3 years ago, if you wanted to include Casas in a deal, he could have headlined one. But with the White Sox, and I think rightfully so, if Casas was included in the deal for Crochet, then it's still going to cost one of your or one or two of your top prospects there. So yeah, he's just not the headliner that he used to be. But as far as evaluating the talent, let's say, so the Crochet deal, for example, I think Braden Montgomery is going to be the guy that in 5 years we look back on that trade and say, man, wish we had that guy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the Red Sox weren't able to identify his talent in present time. I think it's more just, of course, you got an ace, you got an absolute stud, and the White Sox knew the Red Sox are a team that can pay this guy. Like, he could be there for the next 7-8 years, which they would have been correct about that assessment. And what do you mean? Like, you're just gonna identify some awful no talent prospects and get an ace back in return? Like, I don't, if Montgomery or Teal or whoever in that deal, Mydroth, they end up becoming studs, are we going to say the Red Sox couldn't identify talent? No, because it takes talent to get talent. I have no issue with it.
So look, and again, nobody regrets the Crochet deal. I'm just saying, did they give up the right guys? Were there other guys that they could have dealt in that trade? And I do look at the Rafaela contract, Jared, and I say that was needless. They didn't need to do that. And it's
not big, though. It's not costing you, like, you're not going to look at that and say, man, that's really going to hamper us from spending down the line. It's really minimal in terms of what he's getting paid.
Totally agree. But now let me ask you right now, that contract, is it an asset in a trade or is it a detriment?
I think it's a push. I think teams will look at that and say, we're getting a potentially platinum glove defender. We know what he is offensively. There's a ton of swing and miss. There's a ton of chase. Maybe there's a team that's like, hey, we can work on this with him and put together a plan for him. But I don't think it's anything that the Red Sox aren't trying to, like, they have all the drive line guys. Like, it's all the new age hitting mentality guys are under the Red Sox roof here. So I think he just kind of is what he is offensively. We know that the potential for defense is great. I just don't think that that's a guy that's headlining a deal for a frontline starting pitcher. Is he a guy that teams would want to acquire? Sure. But it's Ceddanne Rafaela, and if you want to get like a frontline starter, Casas, and like, I don't think either is headlining a trade.
Okay, let me ask you in another way then. Has Ceddanne Rafaela's take the money out of it? Has his value gone up or down since he came to the big leagues?
I think it's gone down because he hit at every level besides the big leagues. I mean, He wasn't awful last year. He hasn't gotten off to a great start this year either, but his journey through the minor leagues, like, he was someone that had like a 900,000 OPS at every level that he was at. I think, the fans that follow minor league baseball, or at least the Sox prospect guys, no one was touting him as this offensive juggernaut that Christian Campbell became. Like, Campbell wasn't supposed to be a guy, then he became a guy. He hit at every level. He never faced adversity in the minor leagues. It's similar to Rafaela, but I think we were sort of told by the experts, like, don't expect this at the big league level, and we certainly have not gotten that at the big league level.
So I guess all I'm saying is that a guy like Rafaela, to me, is a prime candidate to have been traded. They kept him. They gave him a contract. Doesn't mean they can't cut bait now. I'm not suggesting any of that. But it leads me to look at them and say, okay, did you misevaluate the player? Because he doesn't look like he can hit at the big leagues. He feels like a utility guy to me. It's not the overpayment. I'm just telling you, it leads me to question whether or not they evaluated the player properly. But I have more for you, Jared. Don't go anywhere. He's with us for the full hour, folks. Kevin Majori's got your headlines here. We'll be back with Jared Carrabis on the Baseball Hour.
straightaway center, Kyle Teal, get out of here. And the Knights creep a tad bit closer. It's now 12-2. It's his third home run of the season, RBI number 10.
That was over the weekend, a couple of days ago. White Sox AAA affiliate. Kyle Teal with his third home run. Had a big spring. And again, as Jared Carrabis, who joins us tonight instead of tomorrow, as Jared pointed out, you can't lament. No one is. I'm not second guessing the trade with the White Sox. None of us should. The Red Sox got Garrett Crochet. You got to give something up. The question is, could the Red Sox have? Teal is just a vehicle to get into a bigger discussion about evaluating your own players, whether or not you get it right. Do you keep the right guys, trade the right guys? Some people don't want to trade prospects at all, Jared. Like I felt like Chaim Bloom didn't want to trade prospects at all. Ben Sherrington didn't want to trade them at all. You can't keep them all. Otherwise, you're a small market team just playing young guys all the time. It's a different sort of experience for the Tampa Bay Rays of the world than it is for the Red Sox. The Red Sox can go out and sign Alex Bregman to play third base. They can then play Marcelo Meyer at second, et cetera, et cetera. So my question is, as they go on here, do they evaluate them properly? And I look at a few guys, Jared, that I think over the last few years that they've missed opportunities to deal. For example, Bobby Dahlbeck had a huge second half a few years back. The time to deal him was that winter. They didn't. They kept him. And I remember reading stories about how they thought he had, 30, 35 home run power in the big leagues and that he'd be that kind of player. And they whiffed on it. They got nothing for him. Even if they just got a reliever for him, they could have gotten something. So this is my concern. And again, Breslow was not the head of baseball ops at that time. But I still think that it's really a critical thing that we have to watch closely. Let me just give you a quick one. Yoan Moncada that they traded for Chris Sale. I think at one point he was one of the top 2 or 3 prospects in baseball. He was
number 1.
Okay, so that was my recollection, Jared, that he got to number 1. Does anyone lament giving up Yoan Moncada?
No, I think he got a 1-year deal after he was done with his time with the White Sox.
Yeah, so I think, to their credit, they got that one right. Now, that was under Dave Dombrowski, but they got that right. They recognized that while he was talented, he might never really turn into anything that was going to hurt them, and he didn't. So I just like paying attention to that because I think it's really an important skill. Sean's in Colorado. Sean, what do you got?
Hey, how's it going, Tony and Jared? Jared, you kind of beat me to the punch on Vaughn Grissom, but he's been hitting the crap out of the ball. At the big league levels, you kind of got David Hamilton, who's been kind of struggling, and I think that's a great option for you to get that right-handed bat in for a left-handed bat. On top of that, it kind of pushes Casas and makes him feel a little bit of pressure. I don't know if that's something that gets him going, but is that something you could see the Red Sox doing, and how long would they be willing to wait until they say, screw it, let's see what Grissom looks like at first base?
Jared, go ahead.
I think you're looking at maybe a few more weeks before, because they're already, it's like with Roman Anthony, the team had to come out and say, we're not putting Roman Anthony at first base. Fine. We'll deal with that. But Vaughn Grissom, who's tearing the cover off the ball, they are putting him at first base. And that is because they're preparing to bring him up to the big league level if Casas continues to trend downward as he's been doing since opening day. It's, if you were to ask me when would I pull the trigger on something like that, I'm giving Casas not the longest leash, but I'm definitely not going to do it next series. I'm going to let him try to figure it out. I think it was a very positive moment for him where, he had the walk-off hit over the weekend. Yeah, he went 0 for 4 in the finale. He didn't punch out. So, the bar is very low in terms of what I'm looking for. If he were it's not Devers ugly to start the season. He is putting the ball in play. There's not, like with Jarren Duran, for example, a guy that we haven't mentioned yet. If you look at his numbers on the year, you would say, man, that's not anywhere close to what he did last year. But he's got the 8-game hitting streak. It's 1 hit a night. But he's got some loud outs. Casas, I'm not seeing loud outs from him. I would give him until next month, though. You're still in a good position in terms of the division. They've moved him down in the batting order, so it's not like he's still hitting cleanup and you're like, this is our cleanup hitter, and if he's not producing, then the entire lineup is screwed. That's not necessarily the case. They've got guys that have been able to step up offensively in Casas's offensive absence.
Jared, where are you on Grissom? Do you believe in Grissom?
Offensively, yes, I do. I think that there's a reason why he was so highly touted in Atlanta. There's a reason why he was the piece that was moved for Chris Sale. I know that Chris Sale, his stock wasn't super high at the time of the deal, but there was still plenty left in the tank, and Atlanta knew that. Defensively, I don't think that it's in the same boat as Casas. Don't expect anything that's going to be great on the defensive side of things. But I remember, I think it was Chipper Jones that was talking about Grissom's defense at second base, and he talked a lot about like the footwork and everything. You need footwork at first base. Like that's an important part of playing first base. So I don't necessarily know what to expect from a defensive standpoint, but do I think he can come up to the big leagues and do some damage as a right-handed bat? Yeah, I do. I do believe that.
Okay, let's keep an eye on him too then. Andrew in Alston. Andrew, what do you got?
Yeah, I got a question for Carrabis. So, Maz, I'm not sure if it was you or someone else on the afternoon show, but yesterday one of you was inferring that after the walk-off, there was subdued celebration because Casas maybe isn't as well-liked as other players, and obviously we could see that as fans because he annoys us. But I'm just seeing if Carrabis has any either insight or even theories on Casas as a teammate and anything with that walk-off that someone noticed on the afternoon show.
Andrew, good question. Jared, what's Casas' standing in the clubhouse?
Yeah, I think he has his clique. If you watch the Netflix documentary, he's going out to dinners with Cutter Crawford. Like he's in with some of the pitchers, which I found interesting. You don't usually see position player and pitcher mingling, but he was friends with Cutter. He was in the cold tub with Vaughn, which makes this an interesting dynamic if Vaughn Grissom's going to be the guy that comes up and takes his job and sends Casas down to Worcester. I think, an earlier caller, I think it was Martin in Texas, who's, thankfully he's on the line every single night. Martin used the word antics. I think that that's too strong. When I hear the word antics, I think Manny Ramirez in 2008. I think a guy that's, shoving his teammates in the dugout, that's shoving the traveling secretary down the stairs, that's causing a stir. I don't think Casas has antics unless you really, really are bothered by the nail polish thing, which who cares? Like he's not bothering anyone. His preparation before the games when he's out there and he's sunbathing and he's doing all this stuff and he has some unconventional ways. Like I don't know if you've ever seen him do this, Tony, but he'll go in the dugout and he'll take his bat and kind of just like, push it around the circumference of the poles inside the dugout. It's just, I don't know. He does weird stuff, but he's not bothering anyone. I don't think he's annoying anyone. He's not a distraction. So I don't know. I take exception to antics. It's not that he's not well liked. I think he's just he's in his own boat and he's rowing by himself, and I think he prefers that. He's just a quirky guy that it's not that he's not well liked. It's just he beats to his own drum, and I would assume he prefers it that way.
Okay, so can I say he's not disliked, but he's not necessarily loved either?
I don't know that I could say that either. I've never had someone tell me off the record, like, I don't like this guy. I've never had someone say that. I know that I don't know if it was like named publicly or whatever, but I think Sean McAdam had that report of like a Red Sox veteran that came out and said, "What the bleep is this?" when he was sunbathing. I'm pretty sure that was Pavetta. So maybe if you asked Pavetta off the record, do you like Casas? He would say no. I can't put words in his mouth. But as far as guys that are in the room today, I don't know anyone that has an issue with them. Never heard that.
I'm not sure Pavetta liked anybody. Just my 2 cents on Pavetta. Not that I really know Pavetta that well. John's in Bridgewater. John, go ahead.
So I got a hypothetical to get Roman Anthony in the lineup. You trade Triston Casas for a pitcher. You get Devers at first because I think it's a mindset thing. I think Devers isn't happy that he's DH, so you put him at first, and then you put Roman Anthony at DH.
Okay, Jared, that's a pretty simple one, isn't it? I think you theorized that last week, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it sounds great, but you're just not trading one of the statistically worst hitters in baseball for a pitcher. Like, at this point in the season, no team is looking to trade pitching for I guess, reclamation project. I think it's, maybe that's too strong to call them a reclamation project. It's just a slow start. But a middle of the order bat potentially that's struggling quite mightily. What team is like, here, sure, take this start? It doesn't even have to be a front line. Like, let's say it's a 32-year-old veteran that is a number 3 in a solid rotation. Who is willingly giving that up for not even a first baseman, just a guy that's average to slightly below average defensively that can't hit right now? Yeah. I don't know that any team is dumb enough to do that. Even the Rockies aren't dumb enough to do that.
No, nobody's doing that. Are you kidding? Nobody. Squeeze in one more call. David Malden. Dave, what do you got?
Hey, real quick, Maz, you mentioned Moncada, but the sale trade, the only one that actually panned out was Michael Kopech. He's probably one of the best relievers in baseball. But with Casas, my point is, not only Jared, you said the teammates, you don't know if they don't like him, but I'll tell you what, after he spouted off about the grown man thing down on the picnic table, if you remember in spring training, the Northeastern game, he was the only starter that Cora put in that game, and he played 6 innings. So to me, that's like him saying, just shut up, Tristan, and do your job.
Jared, what do you think about that? I
completely fair.
Yeah, that one I agree with the caller. I mean, that whole thing about, the young guys don't deserve a spot on the team. To me, that's the kind of thing that it pissed teammates off.
I completely agree with you, and I think that did piss some people off. I think that there were, and I don't even think the players in question, like the prospects, were just like, yeah, we're not gonna, it is what it is. But I think that there were people in the room that said, who are you to be saying stuff like this? Like, who are you to be saying who the third baseman is and whether or not prospects should get called up? There probably was like a shut up Tristan moment. I don't know that it lingered, though.
Okay, so I don't know. He strikes me personality-wise as a little bit like Adrian Gonzalez, who had an opinion on everything and wasn't afraid to share it. And again, that doesn't mean that the guys on the team hated him, because they didn't. I think they sort of were able to tell Gonzalez to just, stuff it and put a sock
What was telling was when Cora compared him to Schilling. He said, it's not like I haven't, shared a clubhouse with guys that are super opinionated. You got Schill, and it's like, I don't know that you want to be a guy that's compared like to opinion givers to be on the same tier as Schilling.
It's not a compliment for sure. No. And no question about it. So before we let you go, I do want to ask you one final question, because Bryan Bello, making his return to the rotation tonight, has already allowed a home run in the top of the first inning to a left-handed batter. Looked like a hanging changeup or a hanging two-seamer, something up and over the middle of the plate. Polanco, I think, is the one who hit it out of the ballpark.
Correct.
The ball was tattooed, and Bello has had trouble with lefties. But anyway, long story short, Bello returns. What is the expectation for a guy like Bello now? We're in year 3 with Bello? It couldn't even be year 4, for crying out loud. But the point is, are we now at a stage where he's got to give more?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as he just hit a batter, we're still the bases are now loaded in the first inning. My expectations for Bello are pretty in the middle. I think he's a number 3. I think best case scenario, he's a number 3. I know he looks at himself as someone that he wants to be an ace. When they gave him that opening day start, after they gave him the contract extension, it's like, okay, like, is he an opening day starter? No, it's more just we don't have anyone else. Like, Corey Kluber was our opening day starter a year ago, so I guess it can only go up from here. But he's a number 3. I love what I've been seeing from Walker Buehler. I think that he, best case scenario, is your number 2, and we still haven't seen Lucas Giolito. But what you have is an ace in Garrett Crochet. Hopefully you have a number 2 in Walker Buehler if he can keep this up. And then you have a bunch of number 3s and 4s, which is fine. I don't need him to be a number 1 or a number 2. The way that they're paying him, the way that the contract is laid out, from what we've seen potential-wise, if he ends up being a 3, that's best case scenario. But we've got to be patient with him. Like the numbers in his rehab starts have not been great. I think best case scenario today, you're hoping for 5 innings out of the guy. So It's not like he was tearing it up in his rehab outings, and now here he is ready to be unleashed into the world. So if he has a slow start, I would say be a little patient with him.
Well, I'll tell you what, 5 innings like tonight right now looks like it'd be an absolute blessing. Let's hope he gets out of the first, Jared.
Would be nice.
So listen, obviously we're not going to see you next week. I know you're away, so again, a happy 70th to your father. Enjoy the trip, and safe travels, and we'll catch you when you get back.
All right, Tony, we'll see you then.
All right, there you go. Jared Carrabis with us on Tuesday this week. That will conclude the baseball hour. Joe Murray has got you at the top of the hour. Kevin Majori has your headlines here in a matter of minutes. We'll catch you tomorrow.
This is the Baseball Hour on the